You're tuned in to RX Radio.
So, I deadlifted heavier than I've deadlifted in a long time yesterday.
I saw that.
And yeah. It felt, well, I'm not going to say it felt good. It feels good to be strong, but it didn't feel good deadlifting.
How does it feel now?
It's surprisingly better than I thought. So the thing that, kind of fucked me, but then I wasn't a little bitch about it. I got to about right around 200 kilos, and I was having this crazy referred pain down, from my spine down my entire left leg. I thought to myself, that's what a herniated disc feels like. So I did some things, moved around a little bit. I'm like, all right, it's probably not a herniated disc. It's probably something peripheral, but this feels really fucking bad. But the caveat to this, the bar was moving really well. Mm-hmm. So I try to live my life in a way where I'm just not a bitch. So I put more weight on the bar, and I lifted it again, and I had the same pain. I'm like, all right, well, I haven't deadlifted 500 pounds in a while. I'm going to see if I can do it. And I just had this kind of talk with myself right before as I'm setting up, get the straps in, get set, get the breath, get the shoulders. I'm like, all right, well, if something pops here, I'm okay with it. I'm just going to lift this bar. Lifted the bar, had the same pain, nothing popped, and I'm like, oh, sick. That was cool. I'm not injured now. But I guess the thing that I'm pulling from this is that my mindset around lifting, it has changed. It's changed a lot over the years, especially as, we're going to be 34 in a couple of weeks. Happy early birthday, brother. I'm smarter around training. I'm smarter around training in the way that I don't necessarily have the same mindset that I need to push myself to my absolute limit every training session, or I don't need to do everything I can in the gym every single time I'm in the gym, or I don't need to follow a specific program start to finish to get the results that I want to get, because, dude, life's fucking crazy. I can't even understand your life, but, even my life, on a lot of planes, traveling, managing shit, shit pops up, needs to get handled, miss a session. Training's not as ideal as it has been in the past, but I've gotten to a point where I'm okay self-regulating and pushing where I can and pulling back where I have to. And I haven't been okay with that in the past. I've been very, I'd say an unhealthy relationship with training where it's very meticulous, that I need to do every single thing. And it's if I don't, then I lose my shit. It causes me stress. It causes me anxiety. And I think I'm at the point now where I've just realized life causes me stress. Life causes me anxiety. I can't have that around training. Training needs to be the place that I don't have that so that I can do all the bullshit I have to do in life. So I've got, and dude, shout out fucking Stu Locke. Stu Locke,
on his
I love you,
dog.
man. Dude, he embodies it. Just don't be a fucking bitch. Go out there, lift the weight. This dude, I hope none of you have seen the video, but I'm sure you have. He hits the hole in the squat. You can hear his quad tendon tear in the fucking video. And stands it.
Watch it.
Good, dude. Just don't. But he stands it up most of the way and then gets to the top and loses stability and goes back down. But he sent me his fucking MRI the other day, and a lateral view of the MRI, one of them has no patella. It's it's just femur and tibia, and you're there should be more things here. And then the other one is the patella's way in the wrong place. So
it's the easiest back of the cereal box. What's different about these two images?
yeah, right. It's well, neither of them are good, but this one at least has the thing that the other one doesn't. Fucking wild. Man. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is that training is the thing that it's always been a very important part of my life, but I'm taking an approach to it now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more broken, that this is the thing that I'm not going to let cause me stress. Even if in the moment I'm I could fuck myself up in this lift, but I'm still going to do it because this is the thing that I'm going to do today. I'm still stubborn as fuck. I'm still an idiot. That's not going to change. But just the mindset and the approach around it where it's all right, I'm going to maximize where I can. And it is, like, I'm kind of underselling it a bit. There's a lot of risk management in the way that I approach training. I'll have these conversations with myself, like, and I guess this is kind of steering this in a direction that we can make it into a conversation, but the mindset and the mentality, and even, like, I know it's a stupid buzzword, but like the self-talk going into a lift, I've seen it absolutely determines the outcome for me. Like, if I go into this deadlift and I'm like, all right, well, shit doesn't feel great. Like, I understand the risk I'm taking by ripping this bar off the ground, but I'm going to fucking commit to it. The bar's moving today. I'm going to move as fast as I can. Like, if shit happens, but I'm going to commit to making this lift. And I made the lift. I've been in positions before where, like, I'm beat up, I'm training heavy, and, like, I'm going for a clean, and I'm like, it'd be really inconvenient if I broke my wrist on this clean. And, like, I get in my head, I start thinking, and, like, you can't hesitate. There can be no hesitation when you're talking, like, maximal weight, maximal load, maximal velocity. Like, if there's any hesitation, you've already missed it. And it's like the fact that thought has entered my brain now is enough for me to be like, you know what? Today's not the day. Like, I need to be 100% confident in walking up to this bar, because if I have that thought in my brain, no matter how, like, faint it is, the thought that entered, or the fact that thought entered my brain, as opposed to I'm going to fucking smoke this lift, sometimes that's enough for me to be like, you know what? Today's not the day. When a younger, dumber me would be like, you know what? I'm going to fucking kill myself until I stand this lift up. And sometimes I don't stand the lift up and I still kill myself. So that's, I think, in my mind, like, the conversation piece where I want to take this is, like, the mentality around lifting. Like, for you, you've been through it, dude. You've got a lifting career. So, like, how has that changed for you over the years? And, like, what does the self-talk, like that conversation around lifting, look like in your head?
I think there's a PSA to be had here, because both of you and I started lifting very early. Yes. And it's like, this is like the Bane Batman conversation. And I feel bad having to, like, tiptoe around this with people, but it's like, you've only adopted this, people. We were born in it. Yeah. And, like, so when people hear that, they go, wow, okay, like, even though he thought he was going to, like, strain his back, he still deadlifted. It's like, look, if you think, and if you started training, honestly, like, in your mid-20s, and this isn't being disparaging, this is accumulated 20 years of clinical experience between you and I, and probably about 30 to 40 years of lifting experience talking. Yeah. If you started lifting in your mid-20s, and you're around our age, like, you know, we're born in 1990, and you get to a point in your 30s, and you're having these types of conversations, take the left where Jordan takes the right. Like, you're not, it's not the same. You don't, there's something to be said about the sensitivity that's accrued over just dead pooling yourself, over just beating, like, just senselessly and mercilessly. Like, my mom I used to do 2-a-days when I was 17 years old, and my mom refused to drive me to the gym. So it was the classic fucking uphill both ways, gym bag, Timberland, snowing fucking sideways, like 40-minute walk, 40-minute back just to get a second session in. Like, you can't replicate that. People spend time around me on the road, and sometimes, like, I don't eat a ton, like, I'm fucking busy. And, like, how do you stay so much bigger than everyone else? I'm like, you have no idea what I did to myself from the ages of 17 to, like, 30. Like, it was a unrelenting onslaught of physical stress every single, like, I played high level competitive hockey and lifted 6 to 7 days a week. And I put myself in the hospital in the 9th grade. Like, I was swimming competitively. I swam, like, provincials level. I was a provincial level swimmer, a state level swimmer.
I forget that all the time. That's still insane to me.
Yeah, it runs in the family, dog. My sister, NCAA record holder. My father was a provincial record holder. Like, you put me, I got squabbles, bro. Like, you put me in, like, I'll fucking move in a pool. I got technique like you wouldn't believe. Backstroke, forget about it. It's game on, because I can breathe the whole time. I'm just an engine, dog. Give me a little bit of buoyancy and just yeah. So, and I played high level competitive hockey, and I got into weightlifting. Like, and there's an advantage, and I feel it, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel an advantage because I'm like, look, for the longest time I've done things that other people weren't willing to do. Mm-hmm. And, like, in any situation, I always have that feeling like, whatever you're not willing to do is this thing that I'll do to beat you. And so as you listen to this and we talk about an evolution in mindset over time, you really have to, if people are trying to personalize this to themselves, you have to take into account the time vector. Like, how long has that time been going on? Because it's like there is a and I don't even want to say the word resiliency, because I'm in a lot of ways fragile because of it. I have one of my closest friends in the world, but he stood at my wedding, Shane Butner. Shout out Shane Butner. He texted me like this morning, and he's like, he hunts, and he's like one of these guys that's had six packs since like the fourth grade. Right, like just in good shape. His dad is like in his 60s, still jacked, like good. And I don't say good genetics, just works hard, eats well, like, and he likes jiu-jitsu. And he messaged me, he was like, "What's it going to take for me to get you out on the mats?" And I was like, "Dude, it's not going to happen, dog. Like, it's not." And I told him, like, I'm fragile, but I'm sensitive, and not like Nora Jones. I'll cry watching a movie. I'm not above that. I mean sensitive in the way of like, I know that dialogue well. Like, I know that dial, and there's a little man inside the black hole of my brain that has a flashlight. And he knows when I don't consciously, subconsciously, if the decision's made, I'm going through it, I know it's going to be okay. And there's a lot that comes out of that. One is I sustained some really bad injuries, and I've been okay. And I know now better than last week how to get myself out of pain. Right, so like there's that component to it that I didn't have 10 years ago. But even at 10 years ago, I probably had a better ability and had sustained some injuries from lifting then, only 5 or 6 years into my lifting career, than I do now. So like, if there's a moment where if there's a commitment to it at the level that I'm at now, there's a reassurance that everything's going to be fine. Yeah. And the same little black hole man with the flashlight, if I don't do it, you know what else that guy finds? Is that it's also going to be okay. Right? So like, but you got to earn that. But here's the caveat. And look, there's a chronological age and a lifting age. Both factors are important. There's a window that closes, and I don't want to be pessimistic, and I don't want to stop anyone from pursuing goals in the gym. But, you know, if you started in the game a little bit later, you might want to err on the smarter side always. It's not as if you can adopt an 18-year-old mindset in a 30-year-old body. And there is going to be, like, look, and it blows my mind. People hear that, and because they don't understand how to categorize lifting in like the arena of activities. It's like, if I started golfing now, I couldn't acquire the skills to be a on the tour world-class golfer, right? Like if I started playing basketball now, right? I couldn't acquire the skills to play in any league anywhere in the world. And people will look at that and be like, well, yeah, you're 34 years old. It's like, I can't even enlist in the military, I think, at this point. I think, like, even if North Korea pops off or China, whatever, and they put out the call, like, me and you are working the back office, dog. Like, they're not putting our old asses out there. Like, forget about it. And it's accepted, but it's for some reason in the gym, it's sort of this weird nebulous activity that human beings do that no one really seems to understand. Yet it's no different than like anything else, right? So like, you'll see people in even their mid-20s. Mid-20s, you're too late. You gotta hit that hormone, that God's hormone cycle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just head first. Head first. You're eating in the middle of the night. You're training 2-3 times a day. You're playing sports. Like, from the age of like 16, 15 to 21, it was an absolute fire sale of my body. Like, and you wake up the next day and you're just like I went into the 9th grade at 5'1", 140 pounds.
That's hilarious.
I wore glasses. I had hair down to my shoulders. When I went to just the 10th grade, there's a girl, she's since passed away, rest in peace, Lana Markova. I remember distinctly, I sat next to her in math class in the 9th grade. I grew like 7 or 8 inches just that summer alone, and cut my hair and got contact lenses. And the first day of grade 10 math class, I sat next to her again, and she introduced herself to me. And I was like, oh, harsh. Yikes. But like, I graduated at, I don't know, the height I am now, 5'11", 6 foot, 215. I put on 85 pounds in 4 years. Like, what the fuck is that? If I come back to this podcast at 38 years old and I'm 345 pounds and I put on another 80 pounds, like, that'll never happen again. Like, there is something to be said about, like, hey, if you're a parent or if you're listening to this podcast and you're young, that's a window in your life that when it closes, there's a state of, and again, like, you'll be fine, but there's a veracity, there's a certainty, there's a strength, there's a sensitivity. There are things that you are and I witness it when people got into the game late, and they still develop incredible strength, and they still, can build great physiques and all that, way better, stronger than me, whatever. But there's an IQ to lifting that if you don't hit, like, if this isn't your life in that window from 16 to 21, you can't reopen that window. And it's like, you've used the term little bitch a few times in this podcast, I'm sure. Yeah. And it's like, that gets beaten out of you. Beat it out of yourself in your late teen years. And I think, and what it ends up doing is it gives you the sensitivity to know that if you were to do the same, if you were ever to be like, nah, dog, no more. I'm like, okay, he knows, right? Like, oh, no, I'm good. That was my last set. Like, okay, the little man in the black hole in his head with the flashlight knows something that I don't. Maybe even knows something that he don't. And I just like, yeah, sure, no problem. I peel the weights off. If I did the same, like if we were training together and I was like, yo, dog, that's not my, he's like, oh shit, you good? Yeah, I'm good. And you wouldn't be like, yo, little bitch.
Yeah.
I can tell by looking into a man's eyes when he tells me that this was his, no, I'm not going to do another one. Like, oh, you didn't, well, hold on. Where was that? You didn't start training until your mid-20s. Yeah. That's that little bitch. That's that little bitch. And it's I don't know, it's something to be said. So like, I think using the term like, an evolving mindset around your training, I think is true. But you have to be careful of where your evolution started, right? And, there's again, the chronological and the lifting age. The chronological age has an increasing amount of input as you get older, right? But if you have your training age can always offset that to a certain degree. Obviously, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns, but it's you got to start crediting that account young, and those are interest rates you're never going to get back, right? Like I maybe make the comparison. Like our parents own houses somehow, fuckers, a lot of them. Right? Why? My parents' house cost them, I don't know, like $117,000.
Sick.
They could sell it now for, I don't know, $750,000, $800,000, and they're wondering why I rent. It's like, because you old fuckers, you sons of bitches. And it's like, look, you can't get into the housing market like you could back then, right? It's like you can't get into the good lifting market like you could back. You can still get in. I know people, they're doing well, they're buying houses, but it's like, at the end of the day, their down payment's way higher. Their interest rates are way higher. It's like that. Like, it's you and I bought into this market back in the heyday. And if people who, for whatever reason, and I'm glad people find lifting, but there's an intangible to the mindset, to the acuity, the sensitivity. Like, it's almost like, there's the parable of the old bull and the young bull, where I'm sure you've heard it, for those of you listening, there's old bull and a young bull standing at the top of like a ridge looking down into a valley, and the young bull says, why don't we run down and fuck one of those bulls? And the old bull goes, why don't we walk down and fuck all of them? Like, that's the type of shit you get when you've been in the game for a minute. So, but look, and the only way is you have to kind of accept the terms in which you entered the game. And I think a lot of people want to have this like rah, I've been about it type mentality. But it's like, look, if you want the best results and that's what you're after, which respect on your name if that's what you actually want, because that's what we all want, then you'll heed the warnings given the path that you've taken, right? Like you've taken a path that's entered you into lifting for whatever reason later in your life. If you want to be, pursuant towards the goals that you're after, whether it's strength, whether it's size, whether it's power, whether it's, Olympic lifting, CrossFit, whatever, then you're going to get more respect if you go, hey, I got into this a little bit later. I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm going to call it quits today. And it's like, I'll understand that because you are recognizing that you got into this later, right? Because I do in my heart of hearts think, and I've just seen it so many times, think there's something to be learned of just like, there's a trial by fire in your late teenage years that if you don't go through it, you can't reproduce. You can't be 30 and then lifting for a few years and then, watching Dorian Yates' Blood and Guts VHS transferred to YouTube. You can't. You can't do whatever the fuck you want. Who the fuck am I? I don't know. But like, you can't go in and train like that. You can't do German volume training, right? At 30?
If you're a human, you just can't do that.
Yeah, like you get an 8-month window around your 19th birthday where you can maybe do that. Right? Remember I know you did the 300 workout.
Oh, dude, I did it like once a week for like a year.
And then did your other workout, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I would do that and then legs.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
I think I left them. I went to see the movie again and then like left halfway through.
Yeah, I still don't look like a Spartan. What the fuck?
Yeah, wild. But I think you need to. Yeah, there's an understanding that like, look, your thought process to you has an inception point, but your chronological clock also has an inception point, and you need to be able to put these two, your lifting age and your biological age, together to accept a certain thought. Because there are, there's the 75 hard David Goggins, like, sure, that guy seems like he tries real hard.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's also an amount of respect I have for people who prioritize lifting in their lives, right? Like, you can be maybe you prioritize being a great father if you got into this later, rather than like not picking your kid up for soccer practice because you had to go run and check a box on some fucking 75-day whatever. Like, I just think that there's a lot of things in my life that I've missed the boat on, as far as like things that people benefit from, that they got in at the right time. And there's one thing in my life that I benefited from not missing the boat on, and that's lifting. From basically the time that it was legal for me to get a gym membership, I was training. So it's like, if you're a person who didn't benefit, that's okay. But I think that's what you're seeing a lot of now with the emergence of social media. This blows people away, and I can't even believe it's like a saying that I could say, because we're probably one of the last people who could say this generationally. Is when I started lifting, I didn't even have a cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I not only a cell phone that has a video camera, like I didn't have a cell phone at all. I don't even think I had a computer in my house when I started lifting.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's fucking wild. And the access to time, I think I like that idea of superimposing like biological age with training age, because biological age is going to set the potential of capability, right? It's how much can you progress from whatever starting point you're at. And I think the longer your actual training age is, that's going to also raise that potential. You'll probably have a higher ceiling and a higher floor the sooner you start. You absolutely will. But there's going to be a very real decline of potential over time with biological age. And I think, and it fucking sucks to say this, but I think that's where I'm getting at in my lifting career, where I'm starting to accept that and realize that. Because, I mean, I'm, for who I am and the amount of time I've been on this earth lifting weights, I'm still pretty strong. But I've been doing this long enough where I'm reaching that point of diminishing returns. And I've reached it a while ago, where I started to realize, actually, I'm getting to the point where less is more. And that window you're talking about, like late teens, early 20s, that's kind of a point where more is more. And you reach that point before you have the knowledge, before you have the wisdom to really maximize it. So you go from this space where you're just a fucking idiot, and a lot of what you're doing is driven by ego, not necessarily well-informed, especially me, because now there's a lot of information available, right? You have to vet that information, understand better sources, worse sources. But like you're saying, I didn't have a fucking cell phone. Like, the thing you did when we started going to the gym was you saw what the big dude did, you stayed away from him, made sure you weren't on his machine, and you did it after him. And you just kind of went through in that way. I read like muscle development, like Men's Health, like all the bodybuilding magazines and shit, and I tried to pull stuff from that. But it's just stuff. Like, you just put it together in your head and you do it, and you do a bunch of dumb shit. You're doing probably too much. The stuff you're doing is not maximally effective, which maybe it never is, but it's over the course of your training age, you get better at it. You can distill it down to the things that I can do probably the minimal effective amount and still have progress, as opposed to when you're in that age, your early training age, wherever that is in terms of biological age, you're not good at it yet. You're the worst you'll ever be. You're the dumbest you'll ever be in terms of training. Like, you have the worst regimen, you have the least understanding around what you're doing, how you're going to get the results, and you kind of have to go through that. You kind of have to struggle through that. And people will go through that at different rates, depending on what they're trying to accomplish, depending on how smart they are. I know a lot of really dumb people that do a lot of really dumb shit, but they're still really fucking strong. So you kind of go through this learning phase throughout your training career, through your biological age, your training age, and for me at least, it's moved from more of a place of ego, that I have to lift this weight today, or I have to hit every single session, to more a place of experience, or an informed place, that it's, yeah, so fucking ego, like, fuck, I'm trying to defeat gravity every single day, and even though I lose, like, I still show up. But I understand when it's time to call it quits. Like you said, the guy in the mine with the flashlight, like, I understand, like, some days it's just not fucking there, and some days it's just not worth pushing it. Like, we were in Tampa earlier this year, and I got the Tampa virus, and I fucking, like, I don't know, I was just leaking out of my eyes and nose all fucking day, and I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm going to go home, I'm going to sleep for 3 hours, I'm not going to work out today. Like, there would have been a time where I'm like, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to the gym, and I'm going to just run myself into the ground, and I'm going to have a week of shitty training sessions, as opposed to I'm going to take 3 days off and then get back to better training sessions. So I think it really is this learning experience over your training career that shapes your mentality around training. Because, I mean, like the whole self-talk thing, I think it's become more popular, and I think it can be, like, I don't know the politically correct word to say here, can be really...
Yes.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Hey, but, you just made them say it in their heads.
Yeah.
That's all.
Did you really say it in your head? Oh my god.
Yeah, that's terrible of you.
That's terrible.
You should judge yourself. I don't know what you're talking about.
But like the self-talk in my head that has kind of always stayed is like, yo, don't be a bitch. Don't be a bitch. And it's like, it's evolved over time where it was like, very literally, like, oh fuck, if I don't hit this, like, I'm bitching out, like, I'm not going to get the progress, I'm not going to have the gains, where I truly believe that. And now it's more this point, like, I've actually kind of flipped it, where it's like, all right, are you going to be the type of person that can walk up to a bar that, honestly, maybe you're a little bit fearful, like, maybe there's a little bit of fear in your head, there's uncertainty, you're not sure, like, your body doesn't feel great, you're sore, you're a little bit beat up, like, yeah, it's a very real possibility that you're going to blow out a disc if you take this lift. But are you going to be the type of person that says, fuck it, I'm doing this? And, like, you can show up and you can do it. And that's the way that it's flipped for me. It's like, all right, you need to be able to kind of have that conversation, like the cost-benefit ratio around what's the benefit to doing this. And, like, a lot of times there's literally no benefit. Like, it's all for ego at the end of the day. Unless, like, you're making a living doing this shit, like, yeah, maybe it's for ego, but maybe it's for you. Like, for me, it's for me. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm doing this because I want to do this. I don't give a fuck. I could be in a dark room, no camera, no one around, no music. Like, I'm doing this because I want to do this, and that's reason enough for me to say, I'm the type of person that, like, I'll blow out the fucking disc. Like Stu Locke, he'll blow out the knees to fucking stand up the squat. Like, it takes a certain type of person to be able to put themselves in that position where, you know, maybe you've reached your biological potential for your age. Maybe you're getting to that point of diminishing returns in the gym where you've been training long enough where things are incremental at best, or maybe they're backsliding and you're just trying to hold on. But are you going to be the type of person that shows up and says, like, look, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck what's going on. I don't give a fuck about any of these variables. I'm going to do the thing that I set out to do. And I think that's always been there. I'm sure it's been there with you. I've seen some of the shit you've done, some of the fails you've had, like, gnarly, dude. But that's something that it takes a certain type of person to be able to show up and do that day in and day out for 2 consecutive decades, 3 consecutive decades, 4 consecutive decades. Like, if you're the one that's showing up, like, that's what I mean when I say self-talk. Not the stuff that you guys said some, I don't know, questionably things about in your head. I didn't say it, you said it. But when I say self-talk, it's like when you show up and when you're in that position where maybe you're at a disadvantage or you're challenged. And it's not just in the gym, it's in life, it's in business, it's in relationships. Are you going to show up and are you going to fucking do it? Are you going to do the thing you set out to do, or are you going to be a little bitch about it and you're going to, I don't know if today's the day, but, and like, not talking shit on people that don't push it in the gym or like aren't willing to fucking blow out their discs to make a deadlift, but you made a point earlier that when you're training with someone, you get a look into who they are as a human. You can peer into their soul. If you've been doing this long enough, like, it can be, I don't know, we can go to the gym and do a push session and like meet up with some homies and like whatever, but like you see the person that's willing to take it there. And like some people are like, oh, you fucking, like, what's wrong, bro? Like, do you need a hug? Like, you took it there. And then there's some people that's like, you can tell they just don't have it in them. They don't have it in their being to take it to that place where they're going to push themselves. They're going to show up in that situation where they're challenged and they're going to prevail. So that's something I've always seen. Like, if you're my friend, you're my friend. But if we've never worked out together, are you really my friend?
Well, I just think, too, like, the showing up thing, as you get older, like, there are so many, and one of the benefits of being young is you just get away with a ton of shit.
Yes.
There are so many opportunities when you're young to do so many things you don't do when you're old. I think that's a general statement we would all agree on. Like, you know, whatever play is sports. I play way less sports now than I did when I was young. Right? And I'm sure there is both a physical and cognitive decline in some aspects of my being as a byproduct of that. Right? And that trend of, like, I have less opportunities to do the things that make me a robust human being. Like, you know, I worked with this one super tall guy. I talk about him all the time in the L1. His name was Jeff Gordon, not the NASCAR guy, just a very friendly gentleman from, where was he from originally? He was from the LA area, but he lived up in the Bay Area. He worked at Stanford. And he was like in his late 60s, early 70s, and he was like 6'8", 6'9". I was like, when is the last time this guy like ever put his arm, the top shelf is at eye level. I'm like, when is the last time you put your arm over your head? And he's like, oh, that's a good question. I was like, that's insane. So we probably think like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Because it's like you just do less arm overhead activities as when you're a kid, you probably all the time running around with your fucking arms over your head. And it's like the showing up thing is like, I had plenty of opportunities when I was 17 to show up for myself or others without lifting weights, right? Yeah. I remember this one kid. He was the backup goalie on my high school team. He was in the 9th grade. I was in the 12th grade. And, you know, we had a beef with this rival school that was predominantly Lebanese, and we're predominantly scrappy white trash kids. And he ended up in some beef with the kids at the other school in the 9th grade. And it was like, it was out of a Disney movie. And he like came to me after practice, like, hey man, like I'm going to fight this so-and-so kid at St. Joe's. I'm like, all right, I'll drive you. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll make sure it'll be all right. And I get there, and the grade 12 version of me at the other, who I fought before, it brought his little Habibi kid to the thing. And we're like, my dad, like, hey, what's up, man? Like, we're good? Yeah, we're cool. Like, you're going to let him do their thing. And it's like, you could just so many, I don't have that now. Like, you know, I have a couple of friends who call me and go, yo, I need something. I'm like, fuck, I'm too old for this. But for the most part, I don't have that. But it's like, okay, how do you keep that part alive? And it's such a simple thing. Now, sometimes it doesn't translate. But at the very least, it's like, prove it to yourself, man. Like, that has to be worth something. Like, even if you don't go, get out of your car and help an old lady across, I'll tell you what, every guy who does get out of his car to help an old lady cross the street, he knows what training to failure is, right? Like, there's a level of, primal is not the right word. I don't even think we can use that word anymore. There's a level of instinct, I think, to it. And it's just like, have you devolved to the point where that's meaningless to you? And it's like, and look, this is not like some beating of the chest thing. Like, we're talking about bench pressing a menial amount of weight or whatever. But, like, it's not the point. The point is if the phone rings and someone needs, like, and that's part of the thing that makes my life stressful and your life stressful is in the grand scheme of everything you do, and that's why me and Mac have the same tattoo on our left ribs. It's like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? The people who go, I don't know if I'm going to like go up or call. It's like, stop, make a decision, right? Like lifting is just such a microcosm of life. It's like there's no consequence, dude. What, you're going to hurt yourself? Okay, and then you'll be fine, right? And it's an opportunity at this age. And I think I remember watching a documentary when I was younger. It's probably still on YouTube called, what's it called? Shit, it's a powerlifting documentary. So it probably has the word iron in it, but it's not Generation Iron. It's Power Unlimited. Okay. Great early YouTube documentary on powerlifting. And in that, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of asked this question in a similar format about the mindset of lifting and how it's evolved. And one of my favorites that I keep thinking back to is Bev Francis. I don't know if you're familiar with Bev Francis. Most people are familiar with Bev Francis's Powerhouse Gym in Syosset, New York. Very famous, the East Coast mecca of bodybuilding. But Bev Francis herself was a powerlifter, and I think she turned bodybuilder. So it's named after this prominent early pioneering female figure in the fitness industry. And the question when posed to her, and her answer that I really liked, and I still think about today, even though I probably haven't watched the documentary in over a decade, was like, now I work with the weight. I used to work against it. Now it's me and look, we're doing a thing here. It's a lot more collaborative of like, are we going to do this today? Like, are you and I going to, like, are we going to get along? Where before it was just like, I remember hitting a double at like, I don't know what the kilo would make, 683 pounds or something, like 694 or something like that. I remember hitting a double, like this is, I don't know, 20, maybe older, 25. I remember hitting a double in a mono lift, and after racking it, I blacked out and put my head through a plain glass window. And then I had to pay for the window. I got into my office. Fucking Dan Green, God love his soul. He'll never listen to this, but some of you listening to this might know. Early stages, I was a chiropractor at Boss Barbell Club. Dan was one of my earliest patients. And I hit a 694 double out of the gray mono lift by the back door. And as I racked it, I lost consciousness, and my head flew forward and broke a pane of glass in the window. And I walk into my office the next morning, there's a fucking invoice on my table. I was like, oh, amazing. Insult to injury. Okay.
Grab me one on that day.
Yeah, but it's still like that. When you talk about self-talk, it's an inventory.
Yeah.
It's an inventory. When I have a self-talk, I'm having a conversation with that guy. And that guy's formidable. A lot of people love talking about self-talk with no proof of who they are.
Right.
Do you got the rap sheet for it? Do you got the receipts from the window company? Like, do you have the scars for it? Like, that's where you can gain certainty from your self-talk, is if you have a rap sheet of who you are. A lot of people get into this, and lifting is such a luxury. Like, let's not get this twisted on some Goggins bullshit. Like, this isn't life or death. It's not death, but I think it does have some attributes of life, and I don't think it should be taken super seriously. But at the same time, it's like, people try and get into this. Like, I could be in the locker room in any given Sunday and Al Pacino give the greatest speech of all time, and I go out and not know how to play football. Because it's like, I didn't know how to do it before. right? So if like you're drawing on aspects of your character, it's like you better make sure that those in some way have been manifested in real life at some point, because you can't just go in and like a couple Hail Marys, write in your journal, and then have some positive whatever, and then think that you're going to be able to do this. It's like not a chance.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And you made a point in there about indecision, and to me, indecision is rooted in insecurity, which I kind of, the dichotomy there would be like insecurity versus confidence. And I think a lot of people are indecisive because they are insecure, because they don't have the evidence or they don't have the proof or the experience that they can handle a certain situation. And I think, whether we're talking about in the gym, whether we're talking about in life, I think that insecurity comes from a superficial lie that they tell to themselves. Like an easy example would be, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to kind of be a bitch, and I'm going to lie to myself and say that was a good session. I pushed myself hard. Okay, I guess so. But I think it's impossible for people to actually believe that, even if they tell themselves that lie. Like, deep in your heart, you know that you didn't try. You know that you gave up. You know that you don't have the follow through to be able to do the hard thing that you set out to do. And that manifests as a lack of confidence, versus true confidence comes from knowing that you can do the thing that you set out to do, or handle the situation that you put yourself in. So if you're in a situation, if you put yourself in a situation, you're only truly going to be confident if you know that you're going to be able to handle the outcome, whatever that might be. And that could, like I said, it could be in the gym. It could be that, I stepped up to that heavy barbell and I had the confidence that I could lift it because I know I put in the work that will allow me to lift that weight. Versus it's not insecurity. I don't have any indecision around the lift. I said, I'm going to fucking do this. Like, I'm confident that I'm going to do this. I'm not confident that I'm going to be okay after I do this, but I'm confident that I can do this and I will do this and I'm going to fucking do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be successful all the time, but it means that you put forth the effort that will allow you to be successful eventually, even if it's not in that moment. That's why failure is part of the process. We have to fail. I failed a lot of lifts. And there's still lifts that, I continue to fail that are numbers that I want to hit, lifts that I want to make. But I have the confidence that I will hit those because I know that I'm willing to put myself in this situation that will set me up for success to do that. And that, take out, squat 500 pounds and build a business in there. Put whatever else you want to put in there. But the confidence is going to come from understanding that you're willing to put in the work to do the things that you have to do to be successful in that end goal. And that's where I think a lot of the indecision or that insecurity comes from people, is that they tell themselves they're doing that. And like social media makes it really easy to make it look like you're doing the things, but you fucking know. You fucking know if you're doing the things that are going to allow you to be successful or not. And if you have insecurity around that, that's because you're lying to yourself. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you're probably lying to yourself and you're not doing the things that you have to do to be successful in the way that you want to be successful.
I think the best part about that is given enough time and everyone will know. That's what I love about lifting weights.
Time tells all.
Dog, like, you've been at this a couple of years. Don't talk to me. And another point I wanted to make was I think social media has made it about the journey, which it's never been about the journey for me. It's always been about the destination.
Let's go.
Goal orientation is the number one thing that I do everything, right? It's just like, fall in love with the process. Good luck. Kick that bitch out to the curb after like the third day all the time. It's just like, if I would have lifted on days I felt good, I would have lifted fucking 4 times in my life.
Yeah.
Right? But it is, I think, where was the term? If you Google search trends, the words fitness journey 20 years ago, not a thing. Not a thing. On my fitness journey is like, it's a trending phrase. Like, that wasn't, it was the destination had to be now. Like, I have to, am I bigger yet? 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 That was all I thought about. Every set, am I bigger yet? Am I bigger yet? It was not about like, trust the process and blah, blah, which, like, sure, I get it. But it's like, every day I better be making some sort of stride towards that goal, right? Like, people who fall in love with the process sometimes fall out of love with the goal. And it's like, moron, Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and look, and to bring up a point that I brought up in the last couple of podcasts, and it's haunted me since you've incepted this in my brain years ago. It's like sometimes you have to be real with the fact that people don't want to get better, and it's okay to fall in love with the process. That's fine. Just in this arena, what I love about it is you can't fake it. If you fall in love with the process and have a very stringent goal orientation, you'll be bigger, you'll be faster, you'll be stronger, you'll be the thing that you set out to be. But everyone now is just, they're getting so glad-handed for sharing the journey. It's like, no, that's not the game. The game's not the journey. The game is the destination, right? Like, the game is getting to the place, putting on the size, putting on the strength. Like, that's the game. And people like to tell the journey towards an aim, but it's so easy for people to tell whether or not you've arrived at that destination. So it has been a cultural sleight of hand that allows people to, and you know what, I don't even want to say fool themselves, but there's a cohort of people who don't want to put the effort in for whatever reason, and it's like, we can see you. Yeah. I can tell what you look like. I can see the fucking medium tag on your shirt. Like, I know that I know you're small still, right? Like, it's just, and that's, to me, it's like, and look, whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'll go do my own thing, you do yours. But it's like, there's a culture of mediocrity that wants to take the throne, and it's like, that's not how the game works, man. Sorry. And, you got to be, and it's weird, and I feel like it's not fair, and it's not. But when I make the comparison to other things of like, look, dog, you missed the boat on this. I missed the boat on being a really good musician. Why? Because I was lifting weights when I should have been playing guitar if I wanted to be a good musician. It's like, can I pick it up now and get better? And yeah, am I ever going to like, I was learning Dobie Gray Drift Away last night, and I put on some tutorial video, and I watched this guy just like rip some freehand solo, and I accepted the fact that like I'll never be able to do that. Yeah. And like, that's okay, because then I go to the gym and I look around and go, well, there's a bunch of people here who probably never be able to do the shit I do. Because it's a common analogy, right? Like, don't compare where you are in the book of your life to a page of someone else's. Right? Like, our story started way back. There's sensitivities, there's skills that you can adopt. Like, and that's okay. Like, there's other things that you've done that you're better at than we are in some capacity, but like, you can't have it all. And not that I think what we do is to be anything of value. I mean, I value it, but I don't think society values it. Right? People get annoyed when they sit next to me on planes because they're like, why is this guy in my seat? That's not fair, right? Like, it's an inconvenience to most people. So society definitely doesn't value it, but I do, and I think that's cool. But it's like, you can have your own thing that you value that doesn't have to be this. But yeah, it's an odd phenomenon, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good analogy about you being a musician as well, because it's just about being honest with yourself about not only what you want, the work you're willing to do, but your actual potential in something. Like, it's okay if you're listening to this and you don't want to kill yourself in the gym. Like, if I die under a barbell, just know that I died happy. Like, that's how I wanted to leave this earth, and I'm actively trying to die that way. But I also realize, like, I have no musical talent. I'll never be a magician either, or a musician. But it would be unrealistic for me to think that, okay, I'm going to have my next solo album June next year. Like, that's just delusional. Like, live in reality, root your goals in reality, be honest with yourself, and it's okay to not be the best. It's okay to not be the Jordan Shallow of the powerlifting world, or it's okay I don't know, man. You're the most famous powerlifter I know.
Not remotely true. Not even remotely true.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is focus on realizing your potential, not someone else's potential. And be honest about what that is. Like, you started later in the game. Okay, your potential's not going to be as high. Like, you're still doing the dumb shit. You haven't had the experience. You don't have the knowledge yet to do this in a better informed way, so your potential is going to be lower. So just walk in the gym and focus on realizing your potential in that given moment, not anyone else's. Just be honest about what you can do, where you want to go, have realistic goals, and understand when you're not being honest with yourself. Like, a little bit of delusion is okay, and I think it's helpful in some cases. Like, have big fucking goals, sick, but have them just on the outer reach of what reality is, not living in a complete delusion. So I guess that's my kind of takeaway on this whole situation.
This is the delusion they're living in.
Yeah, Instagram,
their cell phone.
TikTok,
yeah, that's it.
YouTube.
That's the delusion you're living in.
Yeah.
But I think like if you're really about it, you have John Bond put up something the other day. I fucking love John Bond. John Bond's
He's sick.
If you don't
Sick,
follow
dude.
John Bond coach, he's done something with his beard lately, and I've noticed it. He looks great.
Yeah,
I just hope to look that good. Here's a guy who's like got the
realistic
training age
potential, man.
and
Realistic.
the chronological. Right. He's got the training age and the chronological age.
Yeah.
He's the fucking man. But it's something, it's like if you don't sacrifice for your goals, the thing you're sacrificing is your goal. And I think that sometimes the thing you have to sacrifice is your grip, your loose grip on the reality you've constructed for yourself.
Right.
You gotta watch people walk around, it's like, dog, like you need to take an inventory of where you are right now. Because if you want the thing that, and I want this for everyone, like, yeah, to achieve your goals, you're going to get there faster by making the right decisions that are consistent with your actual representation on this roadmap towards the goals you set out. Because if you're making decisions the way like you and I would make decisions, and I don't want to put us on a pedestal, like to go to actually good lifters. Like if I were to make decisions on I'm lifting about, like if I was to make a training decisions like Jamal Browner made training decisions, I wouldn't never get to that. I wouldn't never get better because Jamal's one of the best deadlifters of all time, right? Like I would need to first have an accurate understanding of where I am, both chronological and lifting age, and then make decisions more like those relative to me, like you said, just within the grips or the outer regions of my current reality. Because no one has a basis of reality anymore. So, I mean, and I think we're all due for a reality check of sorts. And that is the nice thing about goal orientation is like, you can look in the mirror, you can look on a scale, you can look at the weights on the bar and be like, this is not moving the needle. Like, or having people around you that are honest. But I think it's so imperative that if you actually want to get to where you want to get to, like, to be able to have honest conversations with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think you made a good point also about having people around you that will be honest with you. Because, like, if you have people that are just pumping you up in terms of these delusional decisions, then you're not setting yourself up for success. You're just putting yourself deeper into that delusion. And I think people know when they're doing this. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, there's that feeling of insecurity around it. So you need to be able to not only be honest with yourself, but if the people around you aren't being honest with you about the delusions that you're telling them, they're not really your friends. They're just pumping you up, or they're just putting you in a position to fail is really what they're doing. So I think that's a really good point that you made. I don't know. I think this is a very different conversation than we typically have on the podcast. But if you're listening right now, this isn't the podcast you wanted, but it's the one you needed.
And that's right. We're the Bane and the Dark Knight of your. If you want us to just call you a little bitch, I think you're gonna have to PayPal me first. That seems like a little bit. That seems like a bit of a. It's like one time Marcus. Oh my god, I gotta tell the story on the podcast. I don't know if it's gonna be bad. I don't think I'm gonna get him to tell it once. Marcus accepted money from a guy on the internet for him to think about carrying him on the beach.
To think about it.
So the guy was like, creepy Miami DM, Marcus in the height of his powerlifting greatness, gets a DM, goes, hey man, like I'm kind of into this. Will you carry me on the beach? Like piggyback style.
Okay.
And like was pretty relentless. And Marcus, I forget the number. It was a hilarious, any amount of money is a hilarious amount of money.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, for a couple $100, let's say, I'll think about it. And the guy fucking PayPal'd him a couple $100. I thought about it. I'm not going to fucking do it. Oh, here is a man who is not delusional. Shout out that guy.
Yeah.
Wow. But anyways, yeah, on that note, I think we'll wrap. But I like digging into this. I think it is one of the features of doing this for a long time is you have the wisdom enough to share. Because people, we didn't have podcasts when I started. Legit.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think I heard of my first podcast in grad school.
Yeah, same.
And I was just like, this is a conversation that someone had with me once in a gym. A training partner that was like, I'm going to take a plate jump. He's like, you don't get to take plate jumps. Like, what do you mean I don't get to take plate jumps? He goes, you're small and weak. You take quarter jumps. I take plate jumps because plates aren't shit for me. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So that's that conversation, but to everyone in the world.
Yeah. Sick.
All right. Well, hey, guys. Appreciate it always.